Hi, good evening all. Welcome for the today's session on how top universities select MS, MBA and PhD applicants. So to start with a small introduction about myself, Gautam. Yes, I am Gautam with 13 plus years of experience in study abroad field, counseling students to get into their masters, MBA and PhD across the world. I have with the help of my team, I have helped multiple number of students to get into top universities. And to give you a short brief about Galvanize Global Education, we are end-to-end solution providers for all your study abroad needs. And how we stand unique from other people is we start with profile building, test preparation, and admissions with the student interest first concept. Unlike other people who just send you to universities where they are working with, we have student interest first, sending you to the best fit universities. That is how we define it, like the best fit universities. That is how we are different from other people, founded by alumni of Stanford, IIT Madras, and IIM Ahmedabad. Okay. So with the vision of transforming the education or the way students get into the best universities. Okay, that was the purpose of how Galvanize was founded. Okay, and I welcome Shanthi Mohan, a former Education USA advisor with experience of 12 plus years in guiding students from the US perspectives. But apart from that, yes, with accumulated 20 plus years of experience, she comes with the motive of guiding students. Again, a good alignment with our concept of student interest first, doing what suits students the best. Okay, I invite Shanti Mohan to take over and present the further session. Yeah, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Gautam, for the
Yeah.
warm introduction. Good evening to everyone who has joined us today. So, just give me a second to share my. I hope the screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Yeah,
You can
thank you.
proceed.
Thank you. So, let's go ahead with the session. So, as you see in the highlights, we are going to talk about how admission committees actually evaluate applicants. I'm sure most of you who are here might have different perceptions about it. However, it's always good to discuss about it to know is there something that you're missing when you are creating your application. So primarily, the session is going to help you understand how things work so differently across different countries and different institutions. And it also depends on the program, and each program might see a different set of values. And I think this is nothing new. Most of the time, we all feel admission outcomes are so unpredictable. As much as it is true, but there is also a reason to it because most of the time, it's not a random decision that comes from the university. There is a context to every application that they receive at their end. So again, this context, I would say it depends on the admission model. It depends on the admission policies. Because these days, one trend that we oftentimes notice is that students are not just stopping with one country. As much as, so much so that in the past, US has always been the top choice for most students. People are now also looking at alternatives. Nothing wrong. The geopolitical scenario, things that happen around us, and the kind of commitments that we are going to make, all that definitely calls for, rethinking sometimes and choose the right set of institutions or the country for us. So now that you know that the reality is decisions are contextual, not random, I would like to know a few questions related to that first through our poll. So please do check this poll. What worries you most about your study abroad applications right now? Because I already set the stage for you in terms of how contextual it is and how each country consider your application in a different way. So I'm hoping to get some answers. Feel free. There is nothing a right or a wrong answer here. Profile is not strong enough. Shortlisting the right university. Yeah. Perfect. That should really be a concern in our mind. Only then we will do our bit of deep dive to check how we match the university in terms of picking up a program. Okay. I presume, yeah, only 3 people have answered. Okay. Okay. So I see that 50% have participated, and the primary concern here is profile is not strong enough. Okay, perfect. Let's see how we are going to deal with that in the coming slide. Okay. So now that we know, let's now try and understand how countries look at your profile. Okay. So I mentioned earlier that the admission systems are absolutely built on different logic in each country. This is what the system exists, right? So if you take, for example, country like the North American countries, they are very strongly believe in the narratives, and then they also want to see the holistic picture of a student, so that they don't want to miss out the potential that the student is going to bring about. In a contrast to UK and Singapore, who are like, unless and until you're a fit to our academic profile, sorry, we can't really give you an admission to the program. If you look at Germany, Netherlands, and Sweden, or some of the European countries, they go one step further and say, unless and until you absolutely match the matrix, the credit matrix that they have set for you, even if you're a A-class student with an excellent research background, I'm sorry, we cannot give you an admission. The last, I would say Japan and few other German programs are more towards what we call it the gatekeeping concept. That is, you definitely need to have a familiarity. So with the familiarity, they feel that they will be able to understand the student better. And that helps them to know how the student would be the right fit for their program or the institution. So if you look at the logic is entirely different, and it also warrants that you prepare one application package and you're going to use it across countries. I'm sorry, it is not going to be the right way. It might backfire, many times. Now let's also take one step further into this. We saw the logic, but basically how this works. So if you, for example, if you take USA has quite a number of institutions. So there are few institutions who are super competitive. There are 100 plus institutions who are moderately competitive. And there are also some easy prey, which might be some 300 odd or 400 odd. So this itself tells us clearly that we need to understand who am I? What is my profile? How am I going to position myself? And how I'm going to create a difference so that my profile stands out than others. So this is the basics with which the US admission works. So there, the application is not just read by one person. Nowadays, even AI also reads the application, and they also have a committee. And then they look at and see whether you are a right fit. Sometimes what happens, students apply by deadline, but whereas some universities say we don't have deadlines, ours is a rolling. So students wait for admissions to come through, and if they don't get into their dream universities, now they think about applying to those with the rolling. So what happens? The rolling fills the seat and there is no more seat available. And unfortunately, you miss the bus. So all these dynamics you definitely need to understand when you're looking at a particular country. For example, UK, they are very, very specific about how was your academic, which is going to completely align with the program that you are taking, in contrast to US. So in US, what happens? You could be an engineering student but want to do, let's say, a degree in, let's say, digital filmmaking. So where do I see the connect? But what I do as a student, like if I have done a lot of such short film making, profiling, and I have a strong portfolio, with that I can still apply and say that I want to come out of this technological education, but I want to go somewhere creative. But that kind of an opportunity is not possible with most of the other countries that we are going to discuss. GRE, as far as UK is concerned, is definitely showcases the strength that you are bringing, but they don't usually use it as a filter. The Canada, on the other hand, very similar to USA, but what happens is in Canada there is a system, what they call as study permit cap. So every province in Canada has a limitation that they can admit only so many students. And that cap is now distributed among multiple institutions which are there. So as a student, if you are aiming to go to Canada, you should also think about all these factors. Which province has more allocation? And how is that dream university that I want to go has its allocations done? And how do I really prep myself to be a more qualified applicant for that? And they strictly follow the GPA thresholds. I mean, if you don't match it, that's an easy filter that can be kept on your application. Then, if you look at the countries like Germany, as I already explained, that they go with a matrix. So there is something called credit mapping. They have a mapping which has to be 100% validated. Only then you become eligible to even apply to that university. You may have a strong research, but if you don't go through that ECTS requirement of so many credits, then you cannot really apply to Germany. Beyond that, they also want validation of your certification, and then making sure that you are a strong candidate. They give a lot of weightage to your academic preparedness. And if it is a research program, lot of alignment with the research. Netherlands is also having certain restrictions, like the cap that we discussed in the Canada. Netherlands has something called numerus fixus program, which is nothing but the maximum students that they can take. So to get the right kind of student, they do a ranking after they evaluate your application. So if let's say that there are 100 positions, and if the student is coming within that 100, and that's fine, you will get admitted. If you go beyond 100, like 50 places beyond 100, then you might be rejected. But if it is 20 and they still feel they can accommodate you, you might be under waitlist, so on and so forth. So Sweden, the advantage, it has one portal. So you need to select the institutions whom you are going to apply to, and you need to rank your preferences. And depending on the ranking you have done, if you have got in the very first preference, then other applications will automatically get dropped. So if you look at, there is so much of variation between countries, like Japan, Singapore, everyone has a different requirement. If you are thinking about multiple countries, my advice is first start identifying the similarity, and then start identifying the timeline, and then work on your application. So it's time to take the next poll. Which country are you currently most interested in applying? Fantastic. Hmm. Not sure if some of you are already in your application process, um, but it's a good call. Good to understand where you really want to go. Thank you. So I think almost everybody has answered. Can I end the poll? Fair enough. Good. So now let's see how basically admissions work irrespective of the country. Okay. So as an applicant, what do they expect from you? So there is something called the real evaluation stack. It comes in 4 different layers. So the first layer is eligibility and risk screening. If you don't cross this stage, obviously you're not going to go to the next level. So then comes academic readiness or the preparedness of the student. Program research career fit. So the academic readiness and program research career fit, the framework can differ according to the country. Europe is generally very, very strict about the way the alignment and the academic readiness work. Differentiation within the pool. I think the only difference you can make in most of the applications in Europe is how strong is your academic and how strong are you aligned with the program, and you map all the framework that they are setting up. Okay. So now I've given some examples here for you to really understand what I try to say under each of these layers. So as I said, it's just a very basic filter that is used by most of the admission committees. So the first is an example for MS in computer science where the applicant has 8.6 over 10, 325 with a strong quant, because most of the STEM programs, if the university is asking for a GRE, a high quant always position you better. IELTS 7.5. The second applicant is going for an MBA program, has done an engineering graduation, but has 4 years of work experience. So this 4 years of work experience, unless and until it is relevant, it's not going to help much. The GMAT score is 710, and he has held, let's say, leadership in company CSR initiative. The third profile is also super. There is a 2 Scopus Index publication because the profile is going for a PhD program. And because it's mechanical, there is a lot of alignment with thermal fluid systems, right? So all 3 are very good profiles, and sure, you will pass through the first layer of the evaluation. But look at the last one. It's a GPA, bare minimum GPA, no GRE even to showcase if there is a academic preparedness, and IELTS is bottom line, but trying to apply to very competitive institutions. So this is where we tell the people, if you want to pass the eligibility and risk training, first of all, understand what is the basic minimum requirements set by the university, how the applications or rather percentage of applications are accepted, and then are you definitely on par with the requirement set, or you are little above the requirement set. If you are able to pass these 3 things, at least your first level filtering, you will be through with that. Now let's go to the next level. The next level is academic readiness. So when we talk about academic readiness, it's more about how can you actually handle the academic rigor that's going to come with a master's program. So the master's program academic rigor is definitely much higher than the bachelor's, primarily because you're going as a matured learner. Probably you also have relevant work experience in the field, so your knowledge system is well prepared to handle the rigor as well. And alignment of the courses that you have studied in the bachelor's with that of your master's program is one of the primary criteria for the academic readiness. We'll discuss a little more about it when we go on the future slides. Here I've given some examples. So if you look at all 3 examples, are doing things that are very much connected to the program that they are applying. Suppose I say that I want to do masters in finance, but I don't even have a basic quantitative paper in my undergraduate degree. Obviously, I'm not academically prepared for it. So this is where, even if you are thinking of a shifting of line, say for example, mechanical student going to a thermal fluid is a direct line. But instead, you are interested in that, but you're coming from, let's say, an electrical thing. How would you establish that, yes, you also know about this? So sometimes they may ask for the basic mechanics paper, basic thermodynamics paper. All that you must have in your transcript so that the universities really understand that. The next is how top universities see your alignment between your profile and the program primarily. So most of the time, the SOPs are one way for the university to understand that. They also look at your resume and they also look at your LOR. If all these things align at a common point, then they would be able to sort of understand that you are a good fit for that particular program. But on the contrary, nowhere you are having a match like that example I previously said. Sorry that you will not go through this particular filter. Especially those who are doing PhD, um, finding the right fits are always a bit of a tough call in the sense you may not sometimes find professors which match with your research interest. Rather, you should go one level down to see what kind of researches are happening and how can I align my interest with that. And then after going there, if you're going to do an extension to actually your dream research, then that might work well for you because the funding, everything depends on alignment of research interest, and otherwise it becomes really tough. For MBA students or for the MS students, my advice is you see both actually require, I would say, a career program fit because the MS program you're going for, if you're going for a taught MS program, then obviously you are looking at a career outcome. Some students who go for the MS with a research background, they might look at a progression to a PhD program. So evaluate yourself on these contexts to see where you really stand. And then the final layer. The final layer is how do you bring in a differentiation? So, like for example, most of the students would have 8.6 CGPA. They will have some 330 in their GRE, 8 or 9 in IELTS. But probably a student who comes with a global exposure might stand out. I mean, we are not going to penalize you for that because just because you don't have a global exposure. But having a global exposure really helps the student, or the global exposure need not be necessarily a physical presence in a foreign country. You could have probably worked with a foreign organization or an international organization. Even that showcases some amount of what I would say a differentiation to your profile. So the leadership impact and all that, if you look at, most of the students do try and showcase some leadership in their application. One thing I want to make it very clear, not everyone can be a leader, right? We also need a lot of team players. So if in case you find you're somewhere in your profile that you can't have a straight alignment to showcase that you are the leader, but showcase your strong team building strength. So that is also considered as one point for a leadership. Okay. So now that we have seen all the four levels of how actually the evaluation stack works, now let's look at what do we mean by academic readiness or versus the excellence. So most of the time we think, oh, I have 8.2 CGPA, I have 9 CGPA, but how much of the actual score contributed by the core major subjects that you have studied? What if you have scored more in non-related elective and that has boosted up your score, but your core subject performances are not so great? Many universities may not consider consider you as academically well prepared. The second one is the curriculum rigor and the trends evaluated. Sometimes what happens in the first year, usually students take a bit of a time to migrate from high school to college, so there can be at a bit of a peak and a down and all that. But by the time they come to the second year, they all settle well. But so how would you showcase these sort of different level plays? How would you even justify that? Why that kind of a trend? Suppose you are not very consistent at all, and there is too much of a variation between semesters. Some of these are taken as that not enough commitment is coming from the student. So all these are basically interpretations that are done by the admission committee when they read your application. The third point, this is where I would like to, the context of institution is always considered. So let's say if it is a super competitive institution and very selective in nature, and even though the project of the student is so great, or some other things are really standing out, if they feel that the academic rigor is the student is not bringing in, they may even wonder whether they will be able to succeed in the cohort that they are creating. So for these kind of reasons, sometimes your application may get rejected. But none of the students, believe me, go through deeper into their transcript. They sort of just see the transcript. But if you just randomly ask them score in particular core subject, some of them don't even remember how much they scored in that or how many credits did they take for this particular thing. So analyzing your transcript is an important aspect that you should do before actually you start working on your application. This is where you can find the gaps and start filling them by either taking extra coursework or by taking a lot of online courses that would augment to the depletion of performance that you have during several semesters. Okay, so why I'm insisting so much on this point is this readiness to excellence is an important aspect if you really want to get admitted to your dream schools. Okay, now let's look at a standardized test. So standardized test, as I said in the beginning, is one way to really showcase your readiness for the academic rigor. Though it's a one-day test, this is probably one of the common tests which is administered the same way across the globe. So a score that you are getting is on comparable with every other peer of you across the globe. So a student taking a GRE in India and a student taking a GRE from, let's say, UK, they're almost taking the same test, right? So comparison becomes easy for the university. So it definitely reduces your risk of being rejected sometimes if you have a great score. And sometimes it helps you to meet the thresholds, or let's say that there are two profiles where one student, the profiles are almost the same, but for the GRE scores. So the GRE could be a tiebreaker and you may stand a better chance if the GRE scores are pretty good. And but it doesn't basically compensate for saying that it is you're a super good student just because you have a GRE. But it definitely enhances your profile. Even if the university says that they GRE might be optional, my sincere advice to students is that this is also one profile builder that you should consider. It might come handy somewhere, even in terms of getting, let's say, an assistantship with a professor. Sometimes the professors might want to see, hey, you have a score. Could you please show me that? And that's also one way for them to assist. Say, because there is a AWA section, and if you are going to work as a research assistant with a professor, and definitely having a great AWA can increase your chances of getting, good opportunity with them. And that goes likewise for your English proficiency exam. So what do the reviewers read beyond scores? Obviously, do you have a clarity in your the direction in which you are going? As I said, you must know 5 years down the lane, where do you see yourself? And that's what is really used as a blueprint for building your entire application package. And any claim that you make, yeah, I was I was a good student in my college. So, but how would you back that claim? So you can say among the 680 students from my batch, I'm in the top 5%. So that showcases how much of competition you had and how much you made up to that particular level. And logical progression, right? Suddenly you're doing engineering. Just because you don't like engineering, you cannot go to a fashion design course, right? But the fashion design, if you're really interested, and all through the 4 year, alongside your engineering, if you're showcasing and building a portfolio for it, then you might be a right fit for it. The final is predictability of outcomes. So from your profile, they will know, oh, okay, this is the kind of student and this is what they are capable of. Yes, my cohort it requires these sort of students. So this is what typically happens with your application beyond all the information that you are sharing. So they are going to dig deep to your profile and find out. Sometimes you may wonder, I fit into all the bills that we discussed so far, but why am I not getting an admission? There are also another hidden element that is called the institutional constraints. So when I talk about institutional constraints, one thing is faculty capacity. So if I have to recruit 100 students, and if I say my student to faculty ratio is like one faculty per 11, I must have enough capacity, right? I can't just then the quality that you are expecting, the personal attention that you are expecting from them definitely comes down. Next thing is funding and research bandwidth. So as much as that they want to give, they want to support all the students, unless and until there is enough funding available in the university, they won't be able to do that. So sometimes what happens, they take only 3 students in a PhD program or in a research master's program because they feel beyond that they don't have enough money to support them through because PhD is a long-term commitment, right? So 4 years or 5 years, you're going to be in the institution, and all 5 years they should be able to provide you that stipend. Suddenly, one fine morning, the professor cannot come and tell you, "Hey, from today you're not going to get paid stipend." So that becomes difficult for the student. So due to that, some universities play it safe. They make sure that they have enough funding till the end for the number of students that they have recruited. Next thing comes is the cohort balance. See, the cohort balance work in a different way. Sometimes let's see that they will keep an average score. So this is the average profile of a student who will be in the group. So they take people who are little above that. They also take people who are little below the expectation. So there is a balance of super brilliant. There is a balance of good potential students, and there is a balance of hardworking students. So because of this cohort balance, if they already fill the cohort, they may hesitate to disturb that balance. They may not really take all the applications which come later. So this could also be one reason why your application is rejected. And this is a very classic example of institution which believe in rolling admissions, which means that they don't have a definitive deadline. They keep accepting applications, and if the application is really good, and if the cohort is well within that limit, you'll get an admit or you may get rejected. That's a final point, visa and placement outcomes. Yeah, so this is also very, very subjective. It's just not the US which is having a lot of issues with the student visa. It's, I think, likewise, all countries have a lot of restrictions these days. And yeah, it's need to be because they really want to give opportunities for potential students, right? So it's not like just because I dream of going to a country and studying, that alone doesn't give me that entitlement to get the visa. I need to prove why am I good? What can I really bring to that table, and how what kind of a differentiation can I make it to the institution? So those are the things which really makes a student more potential. So when you hear these sort of rejections, please keep in mind it's just not one thing saying that, oh, the university randomly rejected me. It's not a random rejection. They may have many of these sort of hidden, constraints which they cannot really put out openly. And that's also one reason for such rejection. The next is the most common question I get: why similar profiles get different results? Obviously, we already spoke about it. All the 4 layers that I spoke about is definitely helping you to make a difference in your profile, right? So evaluation is relative. I agree with that. It's not an absolute one. However, even in an absolute system, they still look for some, brownie points from a student so that they can really recruit that student. Don't keep applying to the oversubscribed programs. oversubscribed universities, position yourself properly so that you don't really come with the same type of a stereotype profile, but you're also able to bring a difference to that. So this is the multi-stage filter, eligibility screening, very important. And then it goes through a committee. Committee reads, multiple people read one application. And then after looking at the various constraints they have, they make sure that this student really clears up all the filter and gets selected. So now let's talk about the stage one eligibility screening. Yeah, prerequisite alignment is very, very important. So read always what is given as the basics for applying. If you don't meet most of them, my recommendation is do not even select the university because you're not the right fit over there. You may be good at some other place. And never produce generic documents. That is writing the same statement of purpose to all the 10 universities without understanding what sort of a program, how this program is structured at that university, what is the difference, some professor reference, so on and so forth. And visa and funding ambiguity. This is like, yeah, this has student perspective as well as the country perspective. So even before you start applying, I mean, having an idea about how are you going to fund your education is very, very important because in a country like Europe, the moment you get an admission, there will be a priority date set for paying your deposit, right? So the deposit is going to be a big money. If you don't have your plan for funding, how can you mobilize that money, right? So funding plan has to happen first. And if you don't pay by that time, they assume that you're not interested in joining. So even though you got admitted, your admission is withdrawn by the university. So be very, very careful about these timelines and what has to be done first needs to be done first. And early silent elimination. I think like don't have a GRE, don't have a proper English score, or you don't fall under the threshold of the GPA that's set by them. All these are easy elimination. Next, when you get eliminated and you successfully clear the stage one, now the committee sits there to evaluate your complete application. So now they are going to work on all the layers that we discussed. So they will look at your academic preparedness, program fit, have you given enough evidence-based claims, and then they will have a comparative discussion with multiple students having similar profiles. And from that, whatever differentiation you make, you will stand out and you get selected. So the final selection, again, also depends on seat limitation, how much funding is available in the university, balance, and how can they really predict the how the student is going to be working with them in the entire 2 years or 1 year. So considering that you will be going through these sort of various layers of scrutiny, and finally you come to a stage where you clear all these and become a successful candidate, we also need to understand what really makes you a good applicant and what really makes an application forward without any trouble. So one is expressing your clear intent to do a particular program at a particular university. Your application has zero ambiguity. I mean, they shouldn't be wondering like, oh, what happened? Why this was not given or why this was not explained? How come he straight away moving to a different sort of a line? How that wrong reference of Professor done? So these sort of things you should avoid in your application. Third, evidence-backed claims. Every single activity that you're doing, it needs to have a qualitative evidence combined with quantitative evidence. So that helps the university to understand you better. And there needs to be a consistency. When I say consistency, across your application, you should be the same person. You cannot have multiple avatars. In resume, you are somebody. In SOP, you are somebody. And in GRE, you are somebody. Then obviously, you're not the candidate for any of the units. Okay. So now, let's see. What is the strategy that you have in mind to come up with a good application like this? So let's say, how confident are you about your current application strategy? Now that you know how your application is evaluated, how the filters function. Let me see. How confident are you? Or not so confident, somewhat confident. Okay. Very confident. Fantastic. I think only 42% right with that. Okay. So which means you are like 50-50. You're not sure or you're too sure. Okay. Fine. I think let's move further. I've given you a general perception of how things really work and how applications are evaluated across universities across globe, right? Now I'm also going to give few specificities related to programs like, I mean, how an MBA program will work, how an MS program, etc. So every program is a different game, right? One size doesn't fit at all. So you need to really play with whatever options that you are selecting. So in the case of MS, most of the time, it is like how a student can survive an academic rigor and how well they can get placed after successfully completing the program. The second thing is with the MBA, they also look at how much will you contribute to the cohort that they are going to recruit. Because in an MBA, everything, when you go to a foreign country, most of the things are experiential learning, no doubt about it. But in the way the MBA classes are conducted, are like most of the time you are given a real life problem and you need to work on it. So when they do that, they also see how would you contribute to the cohort that you are coming. They may be a leader, but you're not a good team player. You may not be a right fit for this, right? So that's where I said you should showcase your leadership as well as you should also be able to say how well you either taken your team through or how well you also played as a good team member. The PhD, yes, it's so clear. Like you need to have a very clear understanding of what type of a research you want to do, and what is the research output that you will definitely be getting, and of course, how much you fit the funding that is supported by the university. So, having said that each program has a different expectation and a different set of people, there is also an SOP strategy that you must adopt according to the program that you choose. So here, as I mentioned earlier, it should showcase your preparedness and focus on a particular theme or a topic. In the case of MBA, it has to showcase the impact that you brought and the leadership that you possess. So even between them, for a MS, it could be a generic prompt, whereas for an MBA, it will be like multiple real life questions for which the student has to assume roles and write those SOPs. So if the pattern itself differs, so you can't have one common thing for both of them. In the case of a PhD, there needs to be a clear explanation on the research agenda and also alignment of your research with the faculty with whom you want to work. Only then it comes out as a strong effort. Okay? So in the case of MS, yeah, coursework is very important. They will look at your readiness for the coursework. How strong are you in your skills, and is there a good employability with all your profile around, and also the alignment of the program. So obviously, any program that we choose abroad, we always see what is the ROI for it, right? So one of the main ROI is calculated mainly through the employability. So if you're going for a program and if the program is not going to really take you to places, obviously no one is going to choose that. So make sure as the university is choosing you, you also make sure that all the four elements are aligned so that that's the best MS program that you could go for. And of course, MBA, most of the time the selection logic is leadership trajectory, peer learning, career maturity, and employer signal. Okay. And I think PhD is self-explanatory. Need to have the clarity of research that you are doing, faculty alignment. So all these are primarily the various cues we have given to you, depending on whether you want to choose MS or MBA or a PhD program. And when it comes to experience, a lot of people think, oh, I have a lot of experience. Even if I have a low CGPA, I will make it through. But it's not always the same. The reason being, how the experience is evaluated, first of all, it is depth over volume. Suppose I have done 5 internships compared to another student who did only 1 internship during my student time. So my 1 internship, if it has a lot of depth over 5 different internships that I have done, obviously the student with 1 internship stands a better chance than you. Okay, so don't go for numbers, go for quality. Second thing, ownership over label. A lot of students assume that if they say, hey, I did a project with KPMG or I did a project with Slumberger or some international company, but that's not the label that, or let's say that sometimes the CEO of a company is writing you a letter of recommendation. That's not going to matter because CEO was not the one who was governing your performance. It was your immediate supervisor who was doing it, right? So don't fall for labels. It's always like what you did and how much you did for that is more important than the company or the institution. So I could be working with a startup, or I would be running my own company, and probably I took it to this level. Even that can be more strong evidence than just writing about your experience working for some top 5 companies and so on and so forth. Okay, so make sure there is a ownership and outcomes over duration. So it's like I worked in the company for 5 years as whatever executive, but there is no outcomes that I can really proudly say that yes, I did it. Or I took the initiative to be a CSR leader. Or like say I fundraised $300,000 in a span of 3 months, or I sold a product to somebody. So these are all the outcomes which either you have achieved in one internship which you did for 4 months, or you achieved over 4 years of a job. So it's more than the duration. How impactful was the outcome is what the universities are really looking for. And this is primarily for people who are thinking of a PhD. So research without publications, yeah, sometimes may not work well for us. But if you are, make sure you know how to really do a literature review, how to say even frame a problem statement. You can even give a synopsis of the research that you want to do, that experimental thinking, and what is the methodology that you would adopt. All that will help you get a good PhD admit. So what matters if it's work experience, especially for many of the MBA or even some of the MS programs. So it showcases whether you have a decision-making responsibility. Is there a progression? Is there a measurable impact through your experience? If it is just a job that you did which has no relevance to what you're going to do, I don't think it might anyway help in your resume. Same thing, always build one coherent story. SOP, LOR, resume, all must align, which I already told you. Consistency is the key. And too much of contradictions definitely brings down your credibility, and you may not be considered as the right student, even though you have all the qualifications. So please give a lot of importance to being the same person across different layers of your application. So these are some of the red flags which you may not really realize. By want of time and other things, you may just use the same SOP and send it to multiple universities. And just because, let's say that if you're working with a professor and for some reason they are not giving you a LOR, reaching out to a HOD and getting an LOR is really not going to help you, because the HOD cannot talk about the job that you did during your say a project with that with the professor, right? And having vague goals. Yeah, 5 years from 5 years down the lane, I see myself as a CFO of 100,000 billion whatever a dollars company. So where do I show the path for it? So that's very important. And if there is a gap and you're not addressing it, that is also a problem. Always address the gaps in your application so that it knows people know that you are very transparent and you are reliable and there is integrity in your. Okay. So these are the successful applications generally have. They have a clear direction, they have evidence backlines, and they position them in a realistic way and coherence across the application. So now that this would have given you an idea like how you have to strategize various elements of your application. At this point, I would like to ask you a question to understand what would help you move forward or faster with your application? What kind of a support you think you really need to sort of achieve whatever I explained so far? Okay, no one answered. Okay, help with SOP applications. Fantastic. Knowing if my profile is competitive, great. Yeah, that's where you actually start. Okay, fine. So this is the right thing. This is the right question that's going to help you understand how Galvanize can help you support this journey. So I'm going to turn the screen over to my colleague Gautam, who's going to talk to you about some real case studies of our students who are well positioned right now across various institutions in the globe. And how we worked with them is what Gautam is going to tell you all. So this would help many of you to understand what kind of support or the excellent services that you get through Galvanize. Over to you, Gautam.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for the detailed explanation on all those things. I think students would have got benefited out of it. And yes, guys, just this thing, few more minutes, we will open the floor for questions where you will be able to ask questions to Shanti, ma'am. Okay, so before that, let me just walk you through what our students have gone through. So how we have helped the students to get into the best university. So I'm just giving you some examples of students who have gone through their GRE preparation, their admission counseling, and all those things with us. So, how did they stand ahead of others? So, this is one important criteria, like benchmarking your profile with others' profile who have already done or get into good universities. Okay, so this is Shyam Sundar who has got into ETH Zurich for MS in statistics. Okay, saying I would say when he came to us, he didn't have much of a this thing idea about which universities he can go to and what kind of scores he can look at. So we started guiding them initially with the GRE preparation and gave him some ideas like he was ideally interested in mathematics at the beginning. So we helped him or may probed him a lot to get inputs from him and then started suggesting statistics, the application of mathematics. That's what statistics, right? So giving him that idea made him get a better score. And we also suggested him like getting a score of 325 plus in GRE might improve his chances. And he was also rigorously practiced towards it, and then he was able to get 330 plus in GRE. Okay, which also guaranteed him a good admission. Okay, so why it worked was it was single coherent specialization. It was clear. There was, I would say, 3 to 4 brainstorming sessions where we were able to find out on the specialization he was interested in, and then depth across the projects. He has also done. He has not done projects on a superficial level, he was able to do it in deeper manner, as well as his research was also matured enough. And then the most important factor was strong alignment across SOP, LOR, SU. So as Shanti ma'am told some time back, it's not just about having a good profile, okay, accumulating it and presenting it in a better manner in your SOP, LOR. That's going to be the game changer, right? So that helped him boost his applications chances. And the next is Niti Srivatsava. So I'm here going to give you a mix of all three profiles. Say the first one was MS, the second is MBA. Okay. And interestingly, in Emlyon Business School, Niti was also able to get a scholarship of 11,550 euros. Okay. So apart from that, she has also got into top UK universities, including University of Manchester and Edinburgh and Birmingham. Okay, she had some full-time experience, and as Shanti ma'am told, how the experience will be counted. For an MBA, yes, your experience will also get counted if you are doing it in the right direction, or if your experience is on the management related field. Okay. Again, for her, she was able to go with for an MBA with a GRE score and an IELTS score. And in spite of having a lower CGPA or full-time experience, we blowed it up in the these things documents. And with the help of her GRE score, she was able to get into a good university. Okay, so her experience was, I would say, the major reason why she was able to get into a good university was her experience was relevant to what she wanted to do. Okay, and her recommenders, that is, her LOR was given by people who spoke what is required by the admission team. Okay, and obviously that is where we come into the play, right? As we are the one who is writing helping you to write the SOPs. Okay, and for that instant, we are not going to write a SOP, yeah? Okay, we are going to help you to do it. And as we are the one who are going to help you, we know what kind of LOR would support your SOP. Okay, so that we were able to give them. Okay, and a clear post-degree goal. That was also one important factor which played a vital role in our admissions. And then this is again the PhD admission, where she was had lot of research oriented experience, as well as she was also very much focused. Her thesis documents was good, okay, with a strong CGPA and a strong GRE score. And in fact, speaking, our GRE score played a vital role in her admission process. We helped her to get her GRE score of 146 to 160. Okay, when she started preparation with us, our initial GRE score was 146, which we helped her with our personalized guidance. So our GRE preparation is purely personalized. So with that, we were able to push her score to 160. Okay, which gave a massive push in her overall score and increased her admission possibilities also. Okay, so she had a good research thing, her faculty alignment, and all those stuffs. Right. So just to sum it up about Galvanize, we provide personalized study plan. This is for your test preparation courses. All our courses are personalized. We initially ask you to take up a diagnostic test and get some details like when are you planning to take your actual exams and all those stuff, and accordingly guide you on how you can improvise it. So say you and your friend are going to sign up for the program, you both might not get the same study plan. Okay. With the unlimited ask an expert option, you can ask for doubts and all those clarifications as and when you require. You will also have full length mock test, practice questions. So we will suggest you, our course managers will suggest you what to practice at what time. So just follow that, you will be able to get it. Okay. That is what we mean by personalized feedback and study plan. And yes, we have enabled students to reach 1,000+ universities across 18+ countries. Okay, being an pure 100% online this thing provider, we have students across the world. Okay, so we have students from nearly 60+ countries, where we have helped them to get into 18+ countries. Okay, and these are again students from where we have helped. Okay. And these are one of the top universities where our students are studying, including MIT, UCLA, Duke, CMU, or say across the thing, ETH Zurich in Germany, Netherlands, all those countries we have helped students to get into. Okay. And you can also look at our Quora, these things, reviews. We are also one among the top these things in Quora, where students have discussed about our courses and all those stuffs. So we will also be sending you these links where you can have a look at it. Okay, how we are different and what is unique about us and all those stuffs. Okay, so yes, thank you for this thing. Attending the session, we will open the floor for question answers. Any questions you can ask us, and I would encourage each one of you to fill up this personalized profile evaluation form or a strategy session. I would say to have a session with our counselors. You can scan the QR code or log in into galvanizeme.com/profile, fill up your details, and we will be able to arrange a call with our experts who will be able to detail you on how you can get into the top 100 universities. Okay, so now open for questions. So Shanti is also available here. You can ask your questions and we would be happy to answer.
Feel free to ask the questions. Okay, there is nothing called a right or a wrong question.
So you can post your questions on the chat box, or
I
you
think
can also raise
someone,
your hands and
yeah,
we will be able to unmute you.
yeah, someone has raised their hand. Robert Morris, Boris.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can speak.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi. I am Boris. I am from Cameroon. So, the question that I want to ask is first, I have a background in accounting and I want to do a master's in economics. I don't know if they're actually very related. And I've never written a GRE before, so I don't know how important a GRE is for it. So, yeah, this is basically just it.
Um, so you said you have a qualification in accounting and economics. Did I hear you clearly? Boris, are you there?
Yes, I am. I have a bachelor's in business administration in accounting, but I want to do a master's in science of economics.
Okay, okay. So as I explained in the presentation, uh, I mean, some countries allow this sort of a switchover from one particular concentration to another. And between accounting and economics, yeah, accounting is totally a different, it's a number practice, whereas economics is going to be a different subject. Did you do at least some sort of a minor or elective courses during your bachelor's degree in economics?
Yes, I did a principles of microeconomics, principles of macroeconomics.
Oh, you did that. But generally, what happens, some universities may require additional knowledge to qualify for it. So the one best way to do is that if you can take up some online courses that are related to, say, behavioral economics or even I don't know, because you're from Cameroon, maybe agriculture is another, agricultural economics could be another a valid option for you. So consider doing courses which enhances the economics part of your profile, and that should help when you go for your master.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, others, do you have any questions? So others, if you have any questions, please do feel free to paste it on the chat box. We'll pick it up. Or you can raise your hand and we would unmute you to ask your questions. Okay. Meantime, you can also fill up this thing strategy call from the QR code or the link which you have.
Okay, must be a long session, so they are all tired.
Yeah,
Or we gave them too much information.
exactly. So I've also posted the link on the chat box for you to easily pick it up.
Okay. There are
Okay.
two hands up, I see. Tushar
Just
and Kapil.
yeah. I will unmute them. Yes, Tushar, you can speak now.
Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. I have a question about the recognition of my degree. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible. Yeah, give me a background about your degree, Tushar.
Okay, I'm currently in my third year of BA English Honors from Delhi
BA English
University,
on Delhi University. Okay.
but it is from the School of Open Learning, Delhi University distance program.
Okay.
So I want to apply in Germany for a course about media, culture, and literature.
Okay.
The name of the university is Europa Flensburg. And I'm just wondering because I'm really curious about this thing because I want to apply for that. So is my degree like sufficient for that? As in, like, are my credits enough since it's a
Okay.
distance degree?
Okay. So this works in multiple ways, Tushar. The best is there is a ECTS comparison, or there is the credit auditing option available, right? So initially you can go through that to understand whether all the credits that you are earned through this distance learning program matches the expectation of the university that you are applying to. Because some may need 210, some may need 250, some universities accept 180. The general calculation is 1.5, that is, one credit of India is taken as 1.5 credits. I think that's the rough calculation that they make. But unless and until your that ECTS auditing is cleared, it might be very difficult to say whether it is valid or not. My advice would be you first write to the university. You explain to them that, okay, though it is a distance program, university does not allow you to complete the program within 1 year or 2 years, right? You need to go through 3 years, right?
Right.
Okay. So the duration also matters, and every year how many credits that you are clearing, and how many contact classes you will have.
Are you talking about regular, like, physical classes?
Yeah, physical class. Yeah.
I have like once a week, but it's not mandatory to like attend because
Okay. Yeah, because most of the open online is, open courses are like that. So
yes.
my advice would be to first check with the university how should you go through this process. So after their recommendation, you can go through the credit audit, and if it fulfills, if they ask 210 or 250, whatever, I think the first level is clear. You are eligible to go and apply to the university.
It's so they require like 180 credits only.
180. Yeah. See, the thing is that by way of calculation, maybe all our credits should be mapped. But we have to strictly understand what are their expectations. See, there is something called 4 credits, right? So what is the 4 credit they expect for a program that you are applying?
Right.
So why with Germany we are insisting on this is Germany works on a strict matrix. Only if the matrix is fulfilled, they will allow you to go to the next. And of course, English proficiency is sometimes they are okay not to take an English proficiency exam, But my recommendation is please take the English proficiency because it helps.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay? I hope it answers.
Okay, thank you.
So do write to
So,
us,
Gautam,
or if you need some help, you can connect with us.
so Bapan,
Hello.
you can speak now.
Okay. Hello, ma'am and sir. It's very
Yeah, hi.
nice to meet you there, attend.
Thank
Ma'am,
you.
I have actually currently I am pursuing my MSc degree from NIT Durgapur. Currently in my last semester. I am doing a project under my project mainly related to optical information processing, and I think I'll be able to publish a paper on that also.
Okay.
Now I am want to pursue my PhD in most likely to in European countries. My question will be, ma'am, that how to shortlist the university. Like there are like top tier universities and there that be below some universities. How to shortlist them? Like if I just prefer top tier university, my probability of getting that post will be very low. So how
Yeah.
to compensate that properly, ma'am?
Okay. So the shortlisting universities primarily, okay, one easy cue that we can use for selection is that when do we say a university is competitive? When the number of students they accept to their institution is low, right? So while you're shortlisting, you can pick universities which are, say, accepting only 20%, maybe one or two university like that. And you can pick up universities that are accepting between 20% and 40%, pick two or three from that. Above 40%, some three or four. So if we have this sort of a different tier institution, when you prepare application and apply to them, even if you don't get it in the competitive, there is a chance of you getting into the next two tiers of institution that we have selected. So this is a common process. But many times what will happen is your profile also is important in terms of determining whether it is competitive or not so competitive. For example, if a university accepts 60% of students, but their minimum requirement is, let's say, 8 CGPA. So in terms of number of applicants, acceptance is high, but if you have a CGPA of 6, still you are not eligible to apply to that university. You understand my point? So what
Yes,
I would
ma'am.
say is, first pick which are all the universities you think you want to apply. Okay, so this is easy way of eliminating. Then go through what is their expectation. How much of that expectation you match? Are you on par with it? Are you overqualified or you are lower qualified? Lower qualified, drop the university. Don't even pick it. If you are matching and you are overqualified, then pick up only those. And do sign up for a call with us, and our advisors also can give you more valuable inputs once you share all the details.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I think we are almost done. It's 8:15.
Anyone else with any questions? So yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for the detailed session. I think students would have enjoyed it. And
Yes, I hope.
once again, I repeat, guys, if anyone wants to get in touch with us for a strategic call with our experts, please do fill up the form and feel free to reach out to us. You have our contact details also available. Okay, fine. And we are always there to help you get your doubts clarified. Okay, all the best.
Yeah, thank
See
you
you in
everyone for
another
joining us
interesting
today.
session like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night to everyone.